What makes a faith true and what makes it false? Interestingly, the Christian message stands or falls on the resurrection of Jesus. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 15, if Christ is not risen, our faith is in vain, and we're of all people most to be pitied. So did Jesus actually rise from the dead? Romans chapter 10, verse 9. If you confess with your mouth, some of you might know this verse, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. If you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Okay, Jesus is God, he died on the cross, and he rose from the dead. These three components actually form the gospel message. I'm not sure if you've heard the gospel before, but here's what it is in a nutshell. God himself, after having created us, knew that we would rebel against him, and indeed, we all rebel against him. And the penalty for separating ourselves from God like that is death. And you might say, why would God kill you for sin? That's a bit extreme. No, God doesn't kill you for sin. When you sin, you remove yourself from the source of life. When you rebel against God, you're looking at the source of life and saying, I'm walking away from you. And so you incur death for yourself. God enters into this world, dies on our behalf so that we don't have to die and be separated from him. And then he rises from the dead to prove that death has been defeated and to show us what will happen to us. We will rise from the dead one day and be with him. That's the gospel message. And it's captured in Romans 10, verse 9. If you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. But what I noticed about that when I was a Muslim trying to investigate whether Christianity or Islam is true is that these are three historical claims. Did a man named Jesus claim to be God? Did he then prove it by dying and rising from the dead? Does the evidence show that he died on the cross, and does the evidence show he rose from the dead? Interestingly, Islam denies all three of these points. Chapter 4, verse 157 of the Quran says he did not die on the cross. Chapter 5, verse 72 of the Quran says he was not God. He didn't claim to be God. So when you establish the case for one, you're actually bringing down the case for the other. This is why when people say all religions teach the same thing, I'm like, that's an absurd statement. These are diametrically opposed. In Christianity, you have to believe Jesus is God to go to heaven. In Islam, if you believe Jesus is God, you're going to hell. Simple as that. They can't be more diametrically opposed.